The scorching Dubai afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the Burj Al Arab's magnificent facade as Karim Al Rahman adjusted his designer suit and stepped into the world-renowned restaurant. The young billionaire heir to the Al Rahman Group was meeting his father for their weekly lunch, a tradition that had become more of an obligation than a pleasure in recent months. The restaurant's interior offered a welcome respite from the desert heat, with its stunning panoramic views of the Persian Gulf stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Sheikh Hassan Al Rahman, Karim's father, was already seated at their usual table, his stern expression a familiar sight that made Karim's shoulders tense involuntarily. "You're late," Sheikh Hassan remarked without looking up from his tablet, where stock market figures scrolled endlessly. "The board meeting this morning was perfectly handled," Karim finished, taking his seat. "The merger with Singapore Technologies is proceeding as planned." He loosened his tie slightly, feeling unexpectedly constricted despite the restaurant's perfect climate control. The conversation fell into its usual pattern: business metrics, expansion plans, and his father's not-so-subtle hints about Karim's responsibility to uphold the family legacy. But today something felt different. The weight of expectations seemed heavier than usual, and the artificial cool air couldn't dispel the suffocating pressure building in his chest. "Your grandfather built this empire from nothing," Sheikh Hassan continued, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "And now?" The rest of his father's words became distant echoes as Karim's vision began to blur. The crystal glasses on the table multiplied before his eyes, and an unusual coldness crept through his body, despite the sweat beading on his forehead. He tried to stand to excuse himself, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The last thing Karim saw before losing consciousness was the alarmed expression on his father's face, an unusual display of emotion from the normally stoic man. Chaos erupted in the restaurant. Guests gasped and security personnel rushed forward, but before anyone could reach him, an unexpected figure emerged from the service area. A woman in simple clothes, her dark skin weathered by the desert sun, moved with purposeful efficiency through the crowd. "I'm a medical professional," she announced firmly, her accent marking her as a foreigner. "Please give him space." Her hands moved with practiced precision as she checked his vital signs, her expression focused and professional despite the luxury surrounding her. When Karim's eyes fluttered open moments later, he found himself looking into the most determined pair of brown eyes he'd ever seen. The woman's face showed relief, but there was something else in her expression, a guarded wariness that caught his attention even in his disoriented state. "You're severely dehydrated," she explained, helping him sit up slowly. "When was the last time you drank water? Not coffee or tea, actual water." Karim pulled away from her touch, embarrassment quickly turning to defensiveness. "Who are you? How dare you? I just prevented you from hitting your head on this rather expensive table," she interrupted, standing up. "A simple thank you would suffice." Security personnel finally reached them, moving to escort the woman away, but Sheikh Hassan raised his hand, stopping them. His eyes were fixed on the mysterious woman with an unreadable expression. "Your name?" he asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to immediate answers. "Amara," she replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Amara Haddad." Sheikh Hassan nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. "You said you're a medical professional?" "I was. In my country," Amara answered, a shadow crossing her face. But that was another life. As Karim watched the exchange, still trying to collect himself, he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. His father's interest in this stranger was unusual, to say the least. The way he studied her, as if trying to piece together a puzzle, made Karim uncomfortable for reasons he couldn't quite explain. "Please," Sheikh Hassan said, "join us." "Father," Karim protested, but one look from the sheikh silenced him. Amara hesitated, her eyes darting between father and son. "I should really get back to—" "I insist," Sheikh Hassan said, in a tone that brooked no argument. "I believe we have much to discuss." The following days at the Al Rahman mansion were filled with an unusual tension. Sheikh Hassan's decision to hire Amara as the family's personal medical consultant had sent ripples through the household staff. Whispers followed her through the marble corridors, and suspicious glances tracked her every move. Karim observed it all from his office, his irritation growing with each passing hour, through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his private study. He could see Amara in the garden, carefully tending to the small herb garden she'd been permitted to create. She'd explained it was for natural remedies, but he remained skeptical of everything about her. "Your father's decision?" "Is final," his assistant reminded him for the third time that morning. "The background check came back clean and her medical credentials are impressive." "Too impressive," Karim muttered, adjusting his laptop screen to better watch Amara's movements. "A brilliant medical student who suddenly abandons her career and ends up in Dubai. There's more to this story, Ahmed. I want a deeper investigation." Ahmed shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, with all due respect, your father has explicitly forbidden any further investigation into Ms. Haddad's background." This caught Karim's attention. He turned sharply to face his assistant. "He what? Since when does my father protect a stranger this way?" Before Ahmed could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Amara stood in the doorway, her simple but elegant attire a stark contrast to the opulent surroundings. Despite the hostility she'd faced, she carried herself with unwavering dignity. "Mr. Al-Rahman," she said formally, "your father asked me to check your vitals daily for the next week. May I come in?" Karim waved Ahmed away and gestured for Amara to enter, his expression cold. "Let's make this quick. I have meetings." As she approached with her medical bag, Karim caught a subtle scent of herbs and desert flowers. He watched her methodically prepare her equipment, noting the precision in her movements and the professional detachment in her manner. "Your father mentioned you've been skipping meals," she said, wrapping the blood pressure cuff around his arm. "My father seems to be sharing a lot with you lately," he replied sharply. Amara paused, meeting his gaze directly. "Your hostility is unnecessary, Mr. Al-Rahman. I'm here to do a job, nothing more." "And what job is that, exactly?" He leaned forward, watching her reaction carefully. "Being my father's spy, gathering information about our family?" To his surprise, she laughed, a genuine melodious sound that seemed to transform her entire face. "If I were a spy, don't you think I'd be more subtle? Perhaps pretend to be intimidated by you and your wealth?" The response caught him off guard, and for a moment he found himself fighting back a smile. But then he remembered the strange way his father had been acting since her arrival, the hushed phone calls, the private meetings. "My father is hiding something," Karim said, his voice low and intense. "And somehow you're involved." Amara's hand stilled on his arm, and for a brief moment her professional mask slipped. Something flickered in her eyes, pain, perhaps, or fear, before she quickly composed herself. "Your blood pressure is still elevated," she said, returning to her clinical tone. "I'm recommending changes to your diet and exercise routine. I'll leave the detailed plan with your assistant." As she packed up her equipment, Karim noticed a small scar on her wrist, partially hidden by her sleeve. She caught him looking and quickly pulled the fabric down. "Not all secrets are dangerous, Mr. Al-Rahman," she said quietly, heading toward the door. "Sometimes they're just painful." Just then, Sheikh Hassan appeared in the doorway, his expression unusually troubled. "Amara, a moment, please." He glanced at his son. "Alone." Karim watched them leave together, his suspicions deepening. Through the window, he observed their conversation in the garden, his father speaking intensely, Amara shaking her head repeatedly, her posture becoming increasingly defensive. Later that evening, as he was leaving his office, Karim overheard a fragment of conversation that made him freeze in his tracks. "He can never know the truth," his father was saying, his voice carrying from his study. "Promise me, Amara. It would destroy everything." Karim stood in the shadows, his mind racing. What truth was his father hiding? And why did this mysterious woman seem to be at the center of it all? The annual Al-Rahman Foundation Charity Gala was the highlight of Dubai's social calendar. And this year's event was no exception. The grand ballroom of the Jumeirah Emirates Towers sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of the city's elite. Karim stood near the entrance, mechanically greeting guests while his mind wandered to the conversation he'd overheard the previous week. "Mr. Al-Rahman." A familiar voice pulled him from his thoughts. Amara stood before him, and for a moment, he barely recognized her. Gone were her simple work clothes, replaced by an elegant emerald evening gown that seemed to catch every light in the room. Her dark hair was styled in sophisticated waves, and a simple pearl necklace graced her neck. "My father's idea?" he asked, noting how the other guests were already beginning to whisper and stare. "He thought it would be appropriate for the family's medical consultant to attend," she replied, smoothing her dress self-consciously, "though I'm beginning to think he was mistaken." Before Karim could respond, his father appeared beside them. Amara, you look lovely. Please allow me to introduce you to some of our foundation's biggest supporters." As Sheikh Hassan led her away, Karim noticed something that made his blood run cold. The pearl necklace Amara wore. He'd seen it before, in old family photographs. It had belonged to his mother, a piece she'd worn at every important event, until her mysterious departure 15 years ago. Across the room, Sofia Martinez, the daughter of a prominent business partner and Karim's expected future bride, watched the scene with barely concealed disdain. She made her way to Karim's side, her designer dress rustling with each determined step. "Darling, you didn't tell me your family had adopted a charity case," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Though I suppose it's appropriate for a charity gala." "Careful, Sophia," Karim warned, surprising himself with his defensive tone. "She's under my father's protection." "Oh, and since when does the great Sheikh Hassan take such interest in hired help?" Sophia's perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around his arm. "There are rumors, you know, about where she came from, about her past." Karim watched as his father introduced Amara to various business leaders and philanthropists. To his surprise, she handled herself with remarkable grace, speaking intelligently about medical initiatives in developing countries and the importance of accessible healthcare. "She's certainly charmed your father," Sophia continued, her grip tightening. "One might almost think," she left the implication hanging in the air. The suggestion made Karim's stomach turn. "Don't be ridiculous." "Am I? Then perhaps you can explain why she's wearing your mother's necklace?" Before he could stop himself, Karim was striding across the room. He reached Amara just as she was finishing a conversation with the Minister of Health. Without a word, he took her arm and led her to a quiet corner of the ballroom. "That necklace," he said, his voice tight, with emotion. "Where did you get it?" Amara's hand went to the pearls, her eyes widening with recognition. "Your father gave it to me to wear tonight. I had no idea. I'll return it immediately." "No," Karim said, grabbing her wrist as she reached for the clasp. "First, you're going to tell me the truth. All of it. What's your real connection to my father, to my family?" Their eyes met, and for the first time Karim saw real fear in Amara's gaze. "Please," she whispered, "you don't understand what you're asking." "Then help me understand," he insisted, unconsciously stepping closer. "Every time I think I've figured you out, something new appears. The way my father treats you, the secrets, this necklace. Who are you really, Amara?" She opened her mouth to respond, but suddenly Sheikh Hassan was there, his face dark with anger. "Karim, release her at once." The command in his father's voice made Karim step back automatically. He realized he was still holding Amara's wrist and let go as if burned. "Both of you, come with me," Sheikh Hassan ordered, already turning toward his private office in the tower. "It's time we had a conversation that's long overdue." Sheikh Hassan's private office in the Emirates Towers was a sanctuary of old-world elegance mixed with modern luxury. Persian rugs covered the marble floors, and ancient Arabic calligraphy adorned the walls alongside digital stock tickers. As Karim and Amara entered, the Sheikh closed the door behind them, the sound echoing with finality in the spacious room. "Sit," he commanded, but neither of them moved. The tension in the room was palpable, like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. "Father," Karim began, his voice controlled but urgent, "I deserve to know the truth. Why does she have mother's necklace?" Sheikh Hassan moved to the window, gazing, out at the glittering Dubai skyline. For a moment he seemed older, more vulnerable than Karim had ever seen him. "Your mother," he said finally, "was not the first woman I loved." The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Karim's mind raced, trying to process the implications. 25 years ago, Sheikh Hassan continued, before I met your mother, I was studying at the American University in Beirut. There I met a woman named Nadia Haddad. Karim's head snapped toward Amara, who stood perfectly still, her face a mask of carefully controlled emotions. "We fell in love," Sheikh Hassan said, his voice softening with memory. "But my father would never have approved. The Haddads were respected academics, but they weren't from our world. When my father discovered our relationship, he threatened to cut off funding to the entire university unless it ended." "So you chose wealth over love?" Amara spoke for the first time, her voice bitter. "You left my mother alone, pregnant with your child." The revelation hit Karim like a physical blow. He staggered back, gripping the edge of a nearby desk for support. "What are you saying?" "Amara is your half-sister, Karim," Sheikh Hassan said quietly. "I didn't know about her existence until recently. Nadia never told me about the pregnancy. She raised Amara alone, giving her the education and opportunities I should have provided." Karim looked at Amara with new eyes, seeing for the first time the subtle similarities, the same determined set of the jaw, the same intensity in their gaze. "When I discovered the truth," Sheikh Hassan continued, "I tried to make amends. I offered financial support, but Nadia refused. She had built a life without me, and she wanted nothing from the man who had abandoned her." "Then why are you here?" Karim demanded of Amara. "Why now?" Amara's composure finally cracked. "Because I had no choice," she said, her voice breaking. "The university where my mother taught faced a financial crisis. Without support, thousands of students would lose their chance at education, the same opportunity that allowed my mother to raise me independently." "So you made a deal," Karim realized, looking at his father, her silence in exchange for saving the university. Sheikh Hassan nodded slowly. "The arrangement was meant to be temporary, but then I saw how brilliant she was, how much she reminded me of Nadia, and I realized I had a chance to know my daughter, even if only from a distance." "And mother's necklace?" Karim pressed, still struggling to process everything. "A peace offering," Sheikh Hassan admitted. "Your mother left us because she discovered the truth about Nadia. She couldn't bear the thought that I had loved another so deeply before her. The necklace was her parting gift. She said it should go to the daughter I never had." Amara reached up to remove the necklace, but Sheikh Hassan stopped her. "No, keep it. It belongs to you now." Karim watched the exchange with a mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. Anger at the deception, confusion about his own feelings, and something else. A strange sense of relief at finally understanding the mysterious connection between his father and Amara. "There's more," Sheikh Hassan said gravely, moving to his desk and pulling out a thick folder. "Something that affects both of you and the future of the entire Al-Rahman group." Sheikh Hassan placed the folder on his mahogany desk with deliberate slowness. The gala's distant music filtered through the windows, creating a surreal backdrop to the unfolding drama in his office. Outside, Dubai's elite continued their celebrations, unaware of the seismic shifts occurring within the Al-Rahman family. "The board of directors," Sheikh Hassan began, "has been pressuring me to announce my succession plan. They're concerned about the future of the company, especially with the upcoming merger with Singapore Technologies." Karim straightened instinctively. This was familiar territory: business, leadership, responsibility. But his father's next words shattered his assumptions. "According to our family's traditional laws and the company's founding charter, all legitimate children have equal claim to the inheritance," Sheikh Hassan continued, his eyes moving between Karim and Amara. "That includes both of you." The implications of this statement hung heavy in the air. Amara stepped forward, her face pale. "I don't want your company," she said firmly. "I came here to save my mother's university." nothing more. It's not that simple, Sheikh Hassan replied, opening the folder to reveal complex legal documents. The charter is binding. If I acknowledge you publicly as my daughter, which I must do before the end of this fiscal year, you automatically become entitled to half of everything. Karim's business mind kicked in, analyzing the implications. The merger would fall apart, he realized. Our partners would never accept such a dramatic change in the succession plan. Precisely, Sheikh Hassan confirmed, but there's more at stake than just business. Our family's reputation, our standing in society, everything would be affected, Amara laughed bitterly. So you want me to continue hiding? To deny who I am for the sake of your precious reputation? No, Sheikh Hassan said, surprising them both. I want you to work together. Both of you have qualities this company needs. Karim's business acumen and your humanitarian vision could transform the Al Rahman Group into something greater than I ever imagined. The siblings, a term that still felt foreign to both of them, exchanged uncertain glances. The years of tension between them took on new meaning in light of their shared blood. And what about Sophia? Karim asked, thinking of his presumed future bride who was still waiting downstairs. The merger depends on that marriage alliance. Sheikh Hassan's expression hardened. Perhaps it's time we stopped letting business arrangements dictate our personal lives. That path only leads to regret, as I well know. A knock at the door interrupted them. Ahmed, Karim's assistant, entered with an urgent expression. I apologize for the interruption, but Miss Martinez is insisting on speaking with Mr. Karim. She's quite persistent. Karim rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. Tell her I'll be down shortly. There's something else, Ahmed added hesitantly. A reporter from the Financial Times is asking questions about Miss Haddad. Apparently, someone tipped them off about her connection to the family. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Sheikh Hassan's face darkened with concern, while Amara's professional composure cracked slightly, revealing genuine fear. How? She whispered. The agreement was completely confidential. Someone wants to force our hand, Karim realized, years of business negotiations having taught him to recognize power plays. They're trying to control the narrative by threatening to expose everything. Sheikh Hassan moved to his phone, already dialing numbers. I'll have our PR team contain this. Karim, go downstairs and keep Sophia occupied. Amara, stay here where it's safe. But Amara was already heading for the door, her chin raised defiantly. No, she said firmly. I won't hide anymore. If someone wants to expose the truth, let them. I've spent my entire life living in shadows, first as the secret daughter, then as the mysterious consultant. I'm tired of it. Amara, please, Sheikh Hassan pleaded, a note of desperation in his voice. There are things you don't understand, dangers you're not aware of. Then help me understand, she challenged. What aren't you telling us, father? The word father seemed to physically impact Sheikh Hassan. He sank into his chair, looking more vulnerable than Karim had ever seen him. Very well, he said quietly. But first, there's something you both need to see. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an old weathered envelope. This letter arrived the day your mother left, Karim. I've never shown it to anyone, but now you need to know the whole truth. The yellowed envelope trembled slightly in Sheikh Hassan's hands as he held it out. The room seemed to hold its breath as Karim took it, the paper crackling softly beneath his fingers. Amara moved closer, drawn by the gravity of the moment. My dearest Hassan, Karim read aloud, his mother's elegant handwriting swimming before his eyes. By the time you read this, I will be far from Dubai. Don't try to find me. This decision wasn't made lightly. He paused, glancing at his father, who nodded for him to continue. I've known about Nadia for months, not just about your past relationship, but about the child, your daughter. At first I was angry, devastated by the revelation, but as time passed I realized something deeper was at play. The Al Rahman Group's involvement with the university closures in Lebanon, the systematic pressure on academic institutions, it wasn't just about your past romance. It was about power, control, and secrets that go back generations. Amara's sharp intake of breath echoed in the quiet room. Sheikh Hassan's face had turned ashen. Your father didn't just threaten. The university's funding all those years ago, the letter continued. He orchestrated a complete takeover of the educational system, using the Al-Rahman Group's influence to control what could be taught, what could be researched. Nadia's family fought against this. They were champions of academic freedom. That's the real reason he forced you apart. Is this true? Amara demanded, her voice shaking. Did you know about this? Sheikh Hassan raised his hands helplessly. I discovered the truth only after my father's passing. By then, the damage was done. The policies were deeply entrenched in our corporate structure. There's more, Karim said, returning to the letter. Hassan, I'm leaving not just because of the past, but because of our son's future. I've seen how the weight of the Al-Rahman legacy shapes people, how it turns idealistic young men into calculating businessmen. I won't let Karim be molded into someone who values profit over people, power over principle. The words hit Karim like physical blows. How many times had he ignored his own doubts about company policies, choosing instead to focus on bottom lines and market shares? But I'm leaving you with a choice, the letter went on. In the company charter, there's a clause your father added, specifically to prevent anyone with Haddad blood from claiming inheritance. It's buried in the legal language, but it's there. You can maintain this barrier, keeping your daughter from her rightful place, or you can challenge it. Break the cycle of control your father created. Amara stepped back, her professional composure cracking. So that's why you brought me here? To challenge this clause? No, Sheikh Hassan said quietly. I brought you here because you're my daughter, and I'm tired of living with the mistakes of the past. The clause, I had it removed last month. That's what triggered the board's demand for a succession plan. But the merger, Karim interjected, the Singapore deal, it would fall apart if there's any hint of instability in the succession. Perhaps it should, Amara said, her voice gaining strength. Perhaps it's time the Al-Rahman Group stood for something more than just profit. A commotion outside the office door interrupted them. Ahmed burst in, his usually calm demeanor visibly shaken. Sir, Miss Martinez is giving an interview to the Financial Times reporter. She's telling them everything. How could she? No? Karim wondered aloud, but even as he spoke, realization dawned. The pieces began falling into place. Sophia's pointed comments at the gala, her family's desperate push for the merger, her convenient appearance with the reporter. The Martinez family, Sheikh Hassan said grimly. They must have discovered the charter change. They're trying to force our hand to make us choose between public scandal and their merger terms. Amara's face hardened with determination. Then let's give them something they don't expect. She turned to Karim, their shared blood suddenly feeling more like a bond than a burden. Brother, I have an idea, but it will only work if we trust each other completely. The gala continued below, but the real drama was unfolding in Sheikh Hassan's office as Amara outlined her plan. The city lights of Dubai twinkled through the windows, a glittering backdrop to their urgent conversation. The Martinez family thinks they're holding all the cards, Amara said, pacing the room with nervous energy. They expect us to either deny everything to save face or cave to their merger demands, but they've overlooked something crucial. Karim watched his newfound sister with growing admiration. In the short time since discovering their relationship, he'd begun to recognize familiar traits, the same strategic thinking, the same determination he saw in the mirror every morning. The university crisis, she continued, isn't just about my mother's legacy. It's about dozens of educational institutions across the region struggling under corporate control. If we reveal the truth about the Al-Rahman Group's past practices and announce our plan to change things, we'd be admitting to years of questionable business practices, Karim pointed out, but his mind was already racing ahead. Unless we frame it as a redemption story, Amara finished his thought. A powerful family choosing to right past wrongs to transform their business empire into a force for positive change. Sheikh Hassan stood by the window, listening intently. The board would never accept such a dramatic shift in direction. They might, Karim said slowly, years of business experience clicking into place. The Singapore Technologies merger isn't just about market expansion. They've been pushing for more sustainable and socially responsible investment opportunities. This could actually strengthen our position. Amara pulled out her phone, quickly pulling up some files. I've been doing research since I arrived. The Al Rahman Group's educational investment division has been underperforming for years. But look at these projections for sustainable education initiatives in emerging markets. Karim moved to look over her shoulder, their earlier awkwardness forgotten in the excitement of collaboration. The numbers were compelling. Potential. Growth that could dwarf their current profits while genuinely benefiting communities. We'd need to move quickly, he said, already formulating a strategy. Before Sophia can control the narrative. I can help with that, Ahmed spoke up from his corner. Everyone turned, having almost forgotten his presence. I've been keeping records, documentation of every questionable decision, every ethical compromise, just in case. Sheikh Hassan's eyebrows rose. You've been spying on us? Protecting you, sir, Ahmed corrected gently. Sometimes loyalty means being prepared to help someone face their mistakes. A warm smile spread across Amara's face. That's exactly what we need. Ahmed, can you get those records to my contact at the Financial Times, the same reporter Sophia's talking to? Karim caught on immediately. Beat them at their own game. Instead of denying the story, we control it. It's risky, Sheikh Hassan warned. The Martinez family has other business ties with us. They could make things very difficult. They already are, Karim pointed out. At least this way, we choose our own path. He turned to Amara. But it would mean publicly acknowledging you as my sister. Are you ready for that kind of scrutiny? Amara's hand went to the pearl necklace she still wore. I've spent my whole life hiding who I am. Maybe it's time for both of us to step into the light. She paused, then added softly, together. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Karim felt something shift inside him. The lonely weight he'd carried as sole heir to the Al Rahman legacy suddenly felt lighter, shared. There's one more thing, Sheikh Hassan said, opening his desk drawer again. If we're going to do this, there's something else you both need to see. He pulled out another envelope, this one crisp and new. It arrived last week, from your mother, Karim. The siblings exchanged startled looks. After 15 years of silence, why would she reach out now? She's been watching, Sheikh Hassan explained, his voice thick with emotion. All this time, she's been monitoring the company's activities, gathering evidence. This letter, it changes everything. The new envelope felt impossibly light in Karim's hands, yet it seemed to carry the weight of 15 years of silence. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened it, aware of both Amara and his father watching intently. My dearest Karim, he read aloud, his mother's familiar handwriting bringing an unexpected surge of emotion. I write this letter, not just as your mother, but as someone who has spent the last 15 years working to understand and document the true impact of the Al Rahman Group's educational policies across the Middle East. He paused, looking up at his father, who nodded encouragingly. What you may not know is that after leaving Dubai, I dedicated myself to establishing an independent educational advocacy organization. We've been tracking the effects of corporate influence on academic institutions, building a comprehensive database of both the damage done and the potential for positive change. Amara leaned forward, her professional interest piqued. The International Education Access Initiative, she breathed. That was you? You know it, Karim asked, surprised. Every education activist in the region knows about IEAI, Amara explained. They've been instrumental in exposing systematic barriers to academic freedom and proposing sustainable solutions. I've used their research in my own work, never knowing. Keep reading, Sheikh Hassan urged softly. I'm reaching out now, Karim continued reading, because our latest research has revealed something extraordinary. The Educational Investment Division of the Al Rahman Group, despite its controversial past, is uniquely positioned to transform the landscape of education across the entire region. We've developed a comprehensive proposal, one that could convert the very systems once used to control education into tools for empowerment. He flipped through the attached documents, his business mind quickly grasping the implications. The proposal was brilliant, a detailed plan to restructure the Al Rahman Group's educational holdings into a network of autonomous but interconnected institutions, each maintaining academic independence while benefiting from shared resources and support. The Singapore Technologies merger, he realized, could actually fund this entire initiative. Their focus on sustainable development would align perfectly with this vision. "There's more," Sheikh Hassan said. "Read the last page." Karim turned to the final paragraph of his mother's letter. "I've watched you from afar, my son, seeing you struggle under the weight of expectations. I've also watched the remarkable young woman who recently entered your life, your sister, though you didn't know it then. The two of you together possess exactly what the Al Rahman Group needs, your business acumen and her humanitarian vision. This proposal isn't just about education reform, it's about redemption, about transforming a legacy of control into one of empowerment." Amara wiped a tear from her cheek, her usual composure cracking. "She knew about me all this time." "Your mother and I," Sheikh Hassan admitted, "we stayed in touch after she left. She was the one who first told me about you." "Amara, about your work, your dedication to education. She helped me see what needed to be done." "But why wait until now?" Karim asked, still processing everything. "Because now you're both here," a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see an elegant woman in her 50s, her grace undimmed by time, standing in the entrance to the office. "Mother?" Karim whispered, hardly daring to believe his eyes. Sophia Martinez chose that exact moment to burst into the office, the Financial Times reporter close behind her. She stopped short at the tableau before her. The Al Rahman family reunited, Amara still wearing the pearl necklace, and the presence of one of the most respected educational reform advocates in the Middle East. "I believe," Karim's mother said calmly, "we're just in time for the press conference." She turned to the startled reporter. "I have quite a story for you if you're interested in hearing about the real future of the Al Rahman Group." The grand ballroom of the Emirates Towers fell silent as the Al Rahman family took the stage together. The gala guests, Dubai's elite business community, and international press gathered around, drawn by whispers of an unprecedented announcement. Camera flashes illuminated the scene as Karim stepped up to the microphone, flanked by his newfound sister Amara and their parents. Sophia Martinez stood at the back of the room, her carefully crafted plan crumbling before her eyes. The Financial Times reporter, who was supposed to be her instrument of destruction, now sat in the front row, laptop ready, obviously more interested in the story unfolding on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Karim began, his voice steady and clear, "today marks not just a new chapter for the Al Rahman Group, but a complete transformation of our family's legacy." He glanced at Amara, drawing strength from her encouraging smile. "For too long we have measured success solely in terms of profit margins and market share. Today, that changes." Sheikh Hassan stepped forward, his presence commanding as ever, but now tempered with humility. "I stand before you to acknowledge past mistakes and herald a new beginning. The Al Rahman Group was built on the principle of creating value, but somewhere along the way, we lost sight of what truly matters. Today, I am proud to introduce two people who will lead us into a better future, my children, Karim and Amara." Al Rahman. A murmur rippled through the crowd at the public acknowledgement. Sophia started forward, but her father, a senior executive of Martinez Industries, held her back, his experienced eyes already calculating the shifting dynamics of power. Amara took her place at the podium, her simple elegance a stark contrast to the opulent surroundings. The future of business lies not in control and exploitation, but in empowerment and sustainable development. As co-CEO of the Al Rahman Group's new Educational Empowerment Division, I am proud to announce our partnership with the International Education Access Initiative. Karim's mother stepped forward then, her years of advocacy work lending weight to her words. Our comprehensive research has shown that investing in accessible, independent education generates returns that go far beyond financial metrics. The Al Rahman Group is uniquely positioned to lead this transformation. The Financial Times reporter's fingers flew across his keyboard as Karim unveiled the details of their plan. The merger with Singapore Technologies would proceed, but with a revolutionary new focus on sustainable educational development. The Al Rahman Group's educational holdings would be restructured into autonomous institutions, supported by a substantial endowment for academic freedom and innovation. "This is madness," Sophia's voice cut through the crowd. "You're throwing away generations of business strategy for some idealistic dream. The board will never accept this." "Actually," a new voice spoke up from the audience. Marcus Chen, CEO of Singapore Technologies, stood with a satisfied smile. "This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we were hoping to see from the Al Rahman Group. Our board has already expressed enthusiastic support for this direction." Karim watched as Sophia and her father retreated from the ballroom, their leverage evaporating in the face of this new reality. But his attention was quickly drawn back to his family, his complete family, together for the first time. His mother's hand found his, squeezing gently. "Your grandfather," she whispered, "believed that controlling education was the key to maintaining power. He never understood that true power comes from setting knowledge free." Later that evening, the gala wound down and the press dispersed with their headlines. The family gathered in Sheikh Hassan's office once more. But this time the atmosphere was different, lighter, filled with possibility rather than secrets. "There's one more thing we need to discuss," Sheikh Hassan said, pulling out a final document. "The future of the Al Rahman Foundation and the role you'll both play in it." Amara and Karim exchanged glances, their earlier antagonism replaced by genuine sibling understanding. They had already transformed a business empire. What else could they achieve together? 1 year later, the Dubai sun illuminated a very different scene at the Al Rahman Foundation's new Educational Innovation Center. The modern glass building, with its sustainable design and open architecture, stood as a physical manifestation of the changes the past year had brought. Amara stood at the window of her office, watching students cross the courtyard below. Young people from all backgrounds, many on scholarships funded by the foundation, hurried to classes taught by some of the world's leading educators. The center had become a beacon of academic freedom and innovation in the region, exactly as they had envisioned. A knock at her door preceded Karim's entrance. Their relationship had evolved from suspicion to rivalry, to something neither had expected, a deep, genuine sibling bond. He carried 2 cups of Arabic coffee and handed one to her, a daily ritual they had developed. "The Singapore Technologies quarterly report just came in," he said, settling into one of the comfortable chairs they'd chosen to replace the imposing furniture of the old offices. "Our educational initiatives have exceeded all projections. Marcus Chen is calling it the most successful merger in their company's history." Amara smiled, remembering the chaos of that night a year ago. "And the Martinez family," Sophia announced. Her engagement to a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur last week. "Her father's company has actually approached us about participating in the educational reform initiative." Karim shook his head in amazement. Sometimes former adversaries make the best allies. "Speaking of allies," Amara said, picking up a letter from her desk, "Mother, Nadia, sends her love. The university is thriving with the new endowment, and she's finally agreed to join our board of advisors." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Sheikh Hassan and Karim's mother, Layla. The past year had transformed their father as well, the stern businessman gradually replaced by a more contemplative leader who had learned to balance tradition with progress. "The board meeting is about to start," Sheikh Hassan announced, but his usual gravitas was softened by genuine warmth. "They're eager to hear about the expansion plans for the Educational Empowerment Program." Layla, who had seamlessly integrated her years of advocacy work into the foundation's mission, added, "And don't forget about the scholarship ceremony this evening. These students represent everything we've been working for." As they walked together toward the boardroom, Amara touched the pearl necklace she still wore, no longer a symbol of secrets, but of family legacy renewed. The halls they walked were filled with vibrant discussion and debate, the sound of minds engaging freely with ideas. In the boardroom before the meeting began, Sheikh Hassan gathered his family close. A year ago we stood divided by the weight of the past. Today, he looked at each of them in turn, his eyes bright with emotion. Today, we are building something greater than I ever imagined possible. Karim caught Amara's eye across the table as the board members filed in. They shared a moment of silent understanding. They were no longer just heirs to a business empire, but architects of a new legacy. The Al Rahman name would be associated not with control and power, but with opportunity and enlightenment. As the meeting began, Amara opened her presentation with a quote from her mother's original letter to Sheikh Hassan. "True power lies not in what we control, but in what we set free." The words resonated through the room, a testament to how far they had come and a promise of where they were heading. Later that evening, as the sun set over Dubai's skyline, the family gathered in the courtyard for the scholarship ceremony. Hundreds of students and their families filled the space, their dreams and aspirations a living embodiment of the transformation the Al Rahman family had undergone. Looking out at the crowd, Amara felt her brother's hand slip into hers. Together they had discovered something more valuable than any business empire, the truth that family, like education, thrives not through control, but through freedom, understanding, and love. As Sheikh Hassan stepped up to the podium to begin the ceremony, Layla and Nadia sat together in the front row, their long-ago rivalry transformed into friendship. The pearl necklace caught the last rays of the setting sun, its glow a reminder that sometimes the most precious inheritances are not the ones we're born to, but the ones we choose to create together. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility, as the Al Rahman family stood united at last, proof that even the most deeply rooted traditions can be transformed by the power of love, truth, and the courage to change. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope you've been moved by this tale of family redemption and the power of positive change. The journey of the Al Rahman family shows us that it's never too late to transform our legacy and choose a better path. If this story has touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear about your own experiences with family transformations and new beginnings. Don't forget to click the notification bell to stay updated with more compelling stories that explore the complexities of love, family, and personal growth. Together, let's continue discovering stories that inspire change and touch hearts. See you in our next adventure.